Welcome to the TLW Podcast. I am Jonathan Pixley here with my co-host, Dr. Sean Owens. Dr. Owens, welcome back as always.
Coach, good to see you, man.
Yep, we got our other partner, Jace Augustus with JCB Media behind the scenes, running the show that we certainly could not run on our own. So love to have him here as well. And as always, all of our guests are super special. But this guy sitting next to us is probably a little bit special in a different way because of the relationship that we've had for as long as we have had it, going all the way back to the Dunham School when he was an outstanding athlete, along with Dr. Owens as well, by the way. And then just the relationships have continued to develop since then. David Fleshman, welcome, David. We're so excited to have you here with us.
Thanks, Coach. Excited to be here.
Yep. So I'm going to give a little background on David. And then we're going to get right into it like we always do with all of our guests, because they're not here to hear us talk. They're here to hear us ask you questions and you answer.
Hopefully they'll be here. Hopefully they'll be there.
David grew up in Baton Rouge, attended the Dunham School, like I said, was an outstanding athlete in both basketball and football. There are those who would argue that you were a better high school football player than basketball player. I would argue against that for sure. But the fact that you were viewed in that light meant that you were a pretty accomplished all-around athlete. Had a knee injury his senior year in high school, very first football game of the season. I can't remember if it was Jamboree or just the first regular season game, but I know it was right there at the beginning. And most people would have thought, okay, well, back then, when you tore your ACL, you were just done for 12 months. And to watch you come back from that and be with us really the last, I want to say about third, maybe half to third of the basketball season, and kind of flipped our season around basically on one leg, was, first of all, amazing to watch and be a part of, but it also defined who you are for sure in every aspect of your life. That led you to then walking on at LSU as a basketball player, even though prior to the injury, there's no question you were a Division I scholarship caliber athlete on the basketball court without question, and would have signed a scholarship somewhere else. But God has plans for all of us. Our viewers have heard my story with the same knee injury, right? And so the amazing thing is, had you not gone to LSU, you may not be sitting in this seat right here. You may be somewhere else, across the country, maybe even across the world, right? Law school at LSU, and then you started your career at Rodell Parsons here in Baton Rouge, and then you were there for 8 years, correct? And then you went to Brazil Saxon Wilson in 2019, and you have been a partner for, remind me how long at this point? 23, I think is what we're
22, 23, sometime around there.
Okay, so it's
several
been
years.
So became a partner pretty quickly after joining, and has been involved in many different areas of law. But I think the thing in Baton Rouge that people would talk about you, and now the differentiator, is sports law. Mm-hmm. And ever since the NIL world was born in 2021, you've really taken that thing and run with it. And I mean, there are people who call you, oh, he's the NIL lawyer. He's the NIL attorney, right? Which you're more than that, but that's what you're seen for. You were 40 under 40, Baton Rouge Business Report's 40 under 40 list 2 years ago, right?
I think so.
And you've accomplished a whole heck of a lot in a short period of time. So again, I'm done talking now. We're gonna transition.
No, look, I love this. Yeah, I'll just sit here and listen for the rest of the. Yeah, you can keep going. This is
our viewers know that I don't normally dress up like this. I only do this for David Fleshman. Yes.
Or unless you have a political rally to go to afterwards.
We could talk about that after this. No,
we didn't know if Dr. Owens was either going to a July 4th political rally or he actually had something important.
Look, I'm going to tell you right now, when your email address is the Presidentist, you have to have the year to go along with it. So.
There you go. Back in 1776.
That's exactly right, man.
First of all, it's an honor to be on the podcast with both of you. I've listened to a lot of them, and shocked to be a guest on with all of the quality guests that you've had. But it takes me back a lot. I mean, both of you have meant a lot to me as well, and especially at an early age. and you talk about the knee injury, there was no other option, was, trying to set new goals that, I wasn't prepared. No one's prepared for that. And you kind of think that your senior year is going to be your best year, and you prepped for that, and you've been working your tail off. But being there with you, having gone through that yourself, I can remember it immediately. We shifted goals, and it was now how can we get back? How quick can we get back in a way that is a safe way to play?
Yeah.
And I remember, you giving me drills. I would sit in a chair. That's when I started to lift weights to be able to put on a little muscle at that time. But having you and having the support of Dunham, it was a good reminder that ball is going to end at some point for everybody.
Mhm.
And I think I knew that before, but I certainly wasn't ready for it to be taken away at that time. But having Miss Coach Pixley and Mind Gym and a lot of just having role models there guide me through that process. There was no other option other than shift your goals, control what you can control, and you're going to come back better and stronger if you stick with it. And this is an opportunity. It's not a loss.
Yeah, just quick story about that year. I will never forget. I was actually going to touch on it a little bit later, but I'll go ahead and do it now. We played on the road against Kentwood. I'll never forget this, Kentwood High School. And if you go into Kentwood, there's a plethora of things that could occur when you're in there. And it was just always a raucous crowd, and there was crazy stuff going on. I remember during the girls' game one time, two Kentwood students got into a fight up in the stands and freaked our girls out. And I got approached by one of the moms from Kentwood's team, and she wanted to beat me up while I was coaching the team. Like, just crazy stuff, right? But one of those games, you had a triple-double in the game, basically on one knee. And one of the doubles was in steals. I think you had like 12 steals in the game, which was incredible. And I remember going through, watching the film and tallying the stats and going, I cannot believe that this dude just did this on one leg. And again, it's a testament to, you just didn't make any excuses, right? I mean, our mantra forever was no excuses, do the work. And I think you were definitely a tribute to that.
Yeah. No, I mean, we in stats, we didn't know our stats really at all. I mean, there was, I would ask you to go fact check that. I'm not sure it's ever been, but
I just didn't tell you.
No, I remember being so excited just to get back on the floor, just to be on the team, like just to be able to get out there and compete. And it really helped me understand just how much of a blessing every opportunity to wear a jersey and to compete, especially with your friends.
Yeah.
And that's something that, it's just a lesson. It's a life lesson. And that's the beauty of sports in general. I mean, while you're coaching us basketball, and I'm learning a lot about the technical side of basketball that I think very well prepared me to be at LSU and to learn other teams' offenses. I had a really good base, and that I think a lot of my teammates did not have. While you were teaching us that, you were teaching us life. And I think, I don't remember thinking that you just thought you were teaching us basketball. I remember thinking he's teaching us life. He is pushing us beyond our capabilities. He believes in us more than we believe in ourselves. And if we're going to have a shot to win, we have to have that attitude. And those are lessons. And again, I'm so thankful to have had coaches that believed in us, that cared about us. And when we knew how much you cared, I mean, I remember you were, I would say you probably softened up in your later years.
I've heard that a few times.
But
Jace might not agree with that.
Yeah, he's smiling over there. But you could get on us harder because we knew how much you cared about us. You would open up the gym in the morning. You would, give me the keys at times. I'd stop by your house and get the keys to the gym to go up there and shoot. And
probably wasn't supposed to do that.
Yeah,
okay.
I think the prescriptive periods run on any claim there. I don't think you get in trouble for that. But we understood how much you cared about us, and I don't think a lot of guys have that with their coaches. And that's always stood out to me, was you could get on us hard because we knew how much you cared about us and cared about our development as young men. And that's an example that I've always taken from that. And Coach Tibb was very similar to that. He would push us. But we knew where it was coming from.
Right.
It was coming from a good place.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
David, I'd like to talk for a minute about your transition from playing high school ball to college ball. Walk on at LSU, 3 years, is that correct? Two. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you describe for us kind of what that experience was like, and any of these specific things that you took from that experience that you can now put into your professional life every single day with all the work that you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I'll say is that it was made pretty clear as a walk-on, you're really not going to have much of a shot to play. And I kind of heard that out of one ear and said, yeah, okay, all right, well, let's just see.
Game on, yeah.
But it became very obvious in the first few pickup games that the talent that I'm playing with is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the best in the country. And while you always still have that work ethic and you say, look, I just got to, keep growing, the speed of the game was the thing that stood out to me the most. I mean, the gaps would close a lot quicker when you make a pass to the wing. The length, the court shrinks out there. That all, I remember just being stunned by the speed of the game. So that was a pretty eye-opening experience. But it's not something where you're really going to school like at Dunham, where we're playing multiple sports together and we know each other's sisters and brothers and families, and it was a really different environment that I was really welcomed into, and always was really appreciative of the locker room guys. I started to understand my role in that group and in that locker room really had nothing to do with on the court during the game. Practice was really the focus. I would work with John Treelor, who was our assistant coach, who coached with Bobby Knight. He would get us to practice early. We would learn the other team's key sets, and we would pride ourselves in running them better than the other team would run them. So, I always thought at some point maybe I could make the turn into actually contributing more. But I also understood and respected my role. And I'll say this about the guys, they also respected that role. And that's what I really didn't know going in. I'd played with a lot of those guys before, Garrett Temple, Tyrus Thomas, Glenn Davis. I mean, I knew those guys for a long time. I'd played them in AAU, had a lot of respect for them, and they had a lot of respect for me, which really makes it easier to understand your role. And my role was not to be on the court scoring points. It was to push them as hard as I could, and to be everywhere they turned. I was going to be right there in a stance trying to, push them or, fight through the screens, all of the little things that I would say I was extremely well prepared for. One reason, because Coach Pixley was a great coach. The other reason was because Coach Pixley also played for Coach Brady.
Sure.
So a lot of these drills, we've been doing at Dunham for 3 years, some of the box out drills and some of these, certainly the conditioning. Pixley didn't get too creative on that. Maybe we had a little bit more time than we did at LSU, than we did at Dunham. But I'll tell you the thing, when I think back to that time period, I think it really helped me understand the significance of every player on a team, whether that's a trial team, whether that's part of a dental practice, whether it's part of a podcast. I mean, you recognized it when we first started Pix. You two can't produce this and get this out on the internet without having someone who is not on screen, not getting credit for this, and not sitting in the driver's seat right now, but he's absolutely instrumental to making this thing happen. So it's amazing to me what you can accomplish as a group of individuals when you don't care who gets the credit.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of those guys. There was a lot of guys that were taking a back seat. Darnell Lazar is one that I think about often. He would start some games, and then he would maybe just be the first guy off the bench, and maybe some games he wouldn't play. That's hard to balance if you don't have the right maturity, or if you're focused more on yourself. It's a problem.
Yes.
And a lot of teams, they have those problems, and that really splinters. We didn't have that. We cared collectively about succeeding and doing the best that we could as a unit.
I love that.
And I'd say I think about that often when I've got younger attorneys that I'm working with, or part of a trial team. They're just as important, and their voice matters. And So I think about that a lot, and I think about also just the relationships that are formed in those moments. I mean, those are some grueling times when you're running, Tiger Stadium, 1,000-yard shuttles there in the heat after workout. I mean, there's a lot of character building in there, and I love that because you find out what you're made out of. Not that different than you trying to push us to run in high school and do long jump.
Remember that run around the lake we did?
And try to get me to run 4 miles around the lake. Sean used to say, "We're not running 4 miles, even though it's 4 miles around. We're not running 4 miles. We're running 2 miles, but then we got to get back home. So we might as well just run the last 2."
I mean,
which is an important mind shift.
You turn around, you're going the same distance. I mean,
but the transition was, I had no idea what I was walking into, and part of me felt the tug to try to go somewhere that I knew I would have a better shot to play.
Yeah.
But I also knew that this was going to come to an end. I knew I've never thought I was going to the NBA. I've never, I grew up in a house that my parents weren't athletes. They weren't pushing athletics. It was something I naturally loved, and they were so thankful. Both my mom and my dad were so thankful to have people who poured into me and invested in me from Ricky Blanton at an early age, to Pixley and Piper and Thrower. Because they had nothing to offer, and they were just very supportive of that. So I knew that it was going to end at some point, and I knew that I wanted to go to LSU, and to be a part of the team. I was really excited about, but I just think back to those locker rooms and those moments, and they're really special times with any team, especially when you have success.
Yeah,
it's a great question.
So, obviously, we've covered the knee injury, right? And that was a traumatic experience, but it's one that you did bounce back from and you made the most of. You had something else happen in college. And I asked you yesterday via text, I said, is it okay if we cover this, right? And you said, absolutely. Which I expected you to say, but it's something that needs to be asked, in my opinion. And your father passed away while you were in college, 2008. And when that happened, obviously that was a devastating experience. I remember coming over to the house the night of, I believe it was the night of, and basically just sitting there, and there were other people there, obviously, who meant a lot to you, and to watch you deal with that in the moment, the way that you dealt with it as a 21, 22-year-old kid, right? Was incredible to me. Your father was an attorney, and most people would use that and say, okay, I'll never do that. And we've talked about this, but I'd love for our viewers to hear just kind of your experience with that, and then what caused you to decide to stay down that path.
Yeah. And one of the things, it was a very dark day, and a lot of times in my mind, the way I think about it, there was kind of a David before that day, and there was a David after. It was one of those just events that, it's still, there's haunting aspects of it to me. But one of the things that stands out to me on that day was you being there and giving me a big hug, and it's also, I loved my dad. I loved being around my dad. I admired him a lot. We were very different I love sports. He used to say he hated PE. He was at every game. We never had that dreaded ride home where he's criticizing me or telling me, you need to cut to the lane harder, or you need to work on this or that. I'd look up in the stands and he was just there smiling. And I always greatly appreciated that about him. And in fact, in football, he would sometimes ask me, David, why do they throw a flag in the fourth quarter? And say, well, Dad, when one guy starts running before the others, that's a false start.
Right.
But he enjoyed that I enjoyed it, and he was there. But I just loved being around him and admired him so much. And, and for him to, especially, passing through suicide. I mean, suicide it's a really tough thing to discuss. And I appreciated you opening that, asking me if I'd be willing to talk about this, because I don't talk about it a ton. And I probably should talk about it more than what I do. But, it leaves you just with this pain in your heart. this, what could you have done differently? What did you miss? And that's a really difficult thing to struggle with. But there was also immediate closure. I can tell you that from he didn't just not come home one night. It was over, and I knew that very, I knew that in the instant. And I wouldn't say I was handling it very well. I would, having guys like you come wrap your arms around me, and Donna to be there, it's always stood out to me and meant so much to me that I often feel like in those moments we don't know what to say in those moments.
Right.
There is no book you can read that says here's what you should probably say in these moments. And so what we as humans, I think, typically do is we just shy away from it. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. Instead of stepping into that uncomfortableness and showing up, and you don't have to say a damn thing. Just being there is what stuck with me. That was 18 years ago. So, I at that point, I was just applying to law school. And I just started really talking to my dad about law and his practice. And I was a runner at his law firm, the firm that he worked at. And so I was starting to have some of these real adult conversations with him and really getting to know him, which, honestly was one of the biggest blessings about, only playing for 2 years as opposed to all 4 years, was that I got to spend a lot of time with him when I was working at Taylor Porter as a runner, or we would go get lunch together. We'd see each other on a routine basis. I would ask him about how he and mom met. It was just kind of coming into this relationship of getting to know him as a man, and less is just a father-son relationship. And so I decided not to shy away from that. And maybe I should. There's a lot of times in law school it was really tough because he did very well in law school. He was top of his class. Went to work at a great firm. It was 7 months later after that incident that I started at LSU Law, which is where he was. And so all of these little things would remind me of him constantly. It was probably not the best decision to dive right into that. But I also knew I needed to dive into that more now than ever because there is no one helping. My mom wasn't working. She had been retired. And I went into the mode of how can I need to help my sister and my mom. And I remember the law school admissions director calling me and saying, look, you've gotten in. So I hadn't gotten in at the time he passed. It was several months later. And they said, but look, we want to just let you know you can defer if you need to take some time. And I remember thinking, defer? We got to get going on this. I need to get a job, and I need to there was just a lot of uncertainty and a drive there to you need to get there was a pre-David that's an innocent, and then there was a post-David that just I would say just had kind of a hardened heart at that point. And really every relationship that you have when you go through something like that is shaken. I mean, you question everything. Yeah. And in a lot of those moments, that's when you go back to those tough times. One of the best lessons that I've ever learned through sports is control what you can control. I can't control how the ref is going to call these things. Now, you might have a little bit more control over that as a coach, but I can't. I can control how I respond to him calling a real, soft foul. I only got 5 of these. I can't give those up. And so, I tried to focus on those things. What can I control in these moments? I can't bring him back. I can help around the house. I can, changing light bulbs and doing that, and trying to stop by at my mom's and try to be there for her. But I would say on the outside, it's like the duck that it's in the water. You've heard that where, it looks all cool, calm, and collected on the surface, but underneath it's chaotic.
Yeah.
And but that was definitely a big moment. And you also learn through that process that you become part of a fraternity that you never signed up for, and how many other people that you're around and that you interact with who have also, been, I'd say, survived a loved one, that's been lost through suicide. And it's not a great club to be in, but it's also you can relate to people, and you can relate to people who have experienced some serious loss. and just be there with them. Wrap your arms around them. Let them know that it is going to be, you are going to survive. The sun's going to come up. But that's helpful in those moments. And I'll never forget you being there. It was definitely night of. I mean,
Yep.
and I don't remember a whole lot of what was said, but it doesn't really matter. But I remember that you were there, and that's always stood out to me.
And you brought up something. My brother recently lost one of his sons, and this is the biggest tragedy in our family's history, right? And I remember going through, like, being there a few hours after it happened, and just sitting there, and we sat there, and he talks to heal, which obviously that's not the time to heal, but my point is that's what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat and we listened, and I'll never forget how many times I would have friends of ours reach out to me instead of him. Obviously didn't know what to say to him, and say, man, I don't even know what to say. I said, that's what you say.
Mm-hmm.
And you just say, look, I don't have the words, and I'm here.
Yeah.
If you need anything.
Yeah.
And I know that I probably really can't help you, but I'm here in any way that I can be. And that's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great point that you brought up. And it's a lesson that that's not the time for advice.
No.
That's not the time for direction. That's not the time for any of those things. It's time just to sit and listen if there's something to be said, and you're not the one to say it.
That's right. Yeah, no, and look, it's something I do often now. I mean, anytime I feel that uncomfortable, oh man, I can't believe something happened. I'd like to reach out to them. I don't know what to say. That's always my cue of reach out. Don't worry about what you're saying. Reach out on their worst day. And that's kind of a motto that, it's real easy to call someone to congratulate them on 40 under 40, or, congratulations on starting a new practice or becoming a name part, whatever it is. Those are easy, but I don't want people around me and to only hear from me on their best day.
That's right.
I want them to hear from me on their worst day.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, I'm not going to give them some sage advice, and I've been asked to go to lunch with people who have, just lost someone from suicide. And,
Sure.
first thing I tell them is, look, I'm not a trained, I don't have any background in this, and I'm not here to offer you any advice. I'm here to let you know that I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I know that you're struggling, and there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days, and you can call me on any of those days.
Yeah.
And I'll be here if you need me to be here. And there's no hour of the day that you can't reach out to me. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
But it's uncomfortable because they look at you like you're going to offer some,
like you've got the answers.
And I remember someone, and of course, people say a lot of dumb things when they're uncomfortable, and those situations are I'm sure you heard several of those.
It's incredible.
That don't worry about it, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Yeah. What did you say?
Really? Yeah.
But someone told me that time heals all wounds, and I was just, I just had to do everything I could just not to just really, but, and of course they don't mean that, but it was a lesson. I never tell someone that time heals it. The wound is there. It'll always be there. The only thing I'd say is that you learn to live with it.
Yep.
In a different, in a way, but there is no healing of the wound.
Mm-hmm.
There's other joyous events, and like having our first child. First of all, meeting Lauren, marrying Lauren, having our first child together. I mean, there's events like that make it easier to live with because your heart's expanding in a way. But there's always a punch, and there's always a hole there. And it's not healed with time. It's just you learn each day to get up and to think more positive about it, to get out of the negative and the dark side of it, to talk positively about him. Those are the things that you learn how to cope with and deal with.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being willing to share that. I know that's not an easy situation, but like pretty much everything else that you deal with, you handle that about like we would have expected you to. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate it. And look, it is a very serious thing. I think we've gotten a lot better with the stigma of depression. But it is there's everyone has somebody in their life that, and look, let me tell you something about my dad. I knew he had depression. I'm not sure I really knew what it was. Never imagined in a million years that he would take his own life.
Right.
I mean, it was such a shock. And I would say most of the time that's how it happens.
Yeah.
And, I also from that, every attorney I'm dealing with, every person I come across, I'm assuming that they are dealing with something, and try to give them the same grace that God gives us, each day. And there's attorneys that I've dealt with that I find out 5 months later they've lost their newborn or whatever, and my heart just breaks for them in those moments. But everybody you're dealing with has experienced the pain.
That's right.
And that's where if we come together and wrap our arms around each other and we make each other understand, none of us are perfect. We make mistakes every single day. We can stop fooling the world. You're not fooling anybody
right.
when you act like you're perfect and that you don't have any warts. We all do, but we all have pain, and the best way to address that or deal with it is with each other, and to talk through that with other people who maybe don't understand what it's like to go through what you're going through. But I know what it's like to go through pain, and I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And that's the power of that, and open up that door is really an important one that I think about often.
Yeah.
David, like you said, thank you so much for sharing that. I'd like to, for a second, talk a little bit about your involvement with LSU. All right, so you're president for LSU's National L Club. You've been involved with LSU's Hall of Fame committee, and then the Council on Athletes as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right, so you're involved. That takes up a significant amount of your time. Is there anything specifically you can tell us about why LSU athletics in general is so important to you? Obviously, you're an athlete there, but I know there's got to be something deeper than that.
Yeah. So I just I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be a part of a team at LSU. I mean, I didn't quite understand the significance it would have in the direction of my life. I mean, I was in law school. My second semester, I get a notice that I'm receiving a scholarship that's reserved for former letter winners at LSU.
Nice.
A former football player who was an attorney set up a scholarship fund. And I remember being so moved. Here I am, and again, I didn't school. I'm not an All-American. I'm not a contributor. I'm a walk-on, and I'm still benefiting from the decision I made to be a small part of one team at LSU, and it meant so much to me, getting to know other athletes. And so what I love about the L Club. So the L Club is just it's an association for former letter winners, and so there's about 9,800 former letter winners that are alive today. That's across all sports. We have a board of 24 with all sports represented. It's incredible to hear what our letter winners are doing across the United States, across our state, and across the world. They across sports, across generations. Some of these relationships. That's the strength of what we have at LSU is the relationships. And so we at the L Club want all of our letter winners, whether they were All-Americans or walk-ons, to feel like there's a place for them to come. We don't ask them for money. It's a small membership fee, but it's really incredible the amount of things, and also the amount of pain, and that's, as president, I've kind of been more attuned with all of our letter winners are going through all of the daily, the struggles that we see in life. Marie Ferdinand Harris and Cedric Harris, she was a former basketball player, Hall of Famer, went to WNBA, and her husband Cedric Harris played baseball. They lost their 14-year-old son a couple years ago in a four-wheeler accident. Our letter winners are just like the population. They are struggling equally. What are we doing as an L Club to wrap our arms around them in that time, instead of just highlighting their accomplishments or being part of Final Four teams or SEC championships? And it's been we have an incredible board, and that's what I'm really motivated to do, is to let everyone know how much we care about them, regardless if they went pro, regardless if they won a championship.
Like the actual individual
Yeah,
themselves.
and there's a lot of struggle, and I think, Pix, you probably, all of us can recognize that. I mean, to some degree, we all identify as being athletes at some point in your life.
Sure.
And at some point, you're not going to do that anymore. But I wouldn't say that we've made our identity about that. But a lot of these guys have made their identity that's all they've done their entire life is get into a pool at 4:30 a.m. And that's been their importance to their family, their community. And when that's gone, how are they making that next transition?
I've been fascinated. We talk about the number of Olympians that face major depressive episodes when the Olympics are over, because when your life is so hyper fixated around this one specific thing, and then that's gone and that's taken from you, it makes you question a lot.
Yeah, and everybody at some degree, and some of the best athletes have maybe a harder time doing that. You know, and I would say the more popular, the more success that you have on a big stage, the harder it is to kind of wean off of that, because then you're just someone who doesn't really even have a degree. You've got some money, you know, hopefully if you went the pro route, but the vast majority of players, they didn't make it big. There's some people have a lot of regret about their time at LSU. They have a lot of disappointment. Other people are really, cherish their time there. But we're trying to bring everyone back here to say, we are glad that you're here. We want to celebrate what you did here, or your engagement here. This isn't a piece to raise funds. That's TAF's role. If you want to, if you've got a lot of money and you want to go donate there, go donate there. We want you to understand that we care about you and where you are and what you're doing now and today.
I love that.
So, David, we're going to transition into, and we want to get your take on this. We've started doing this with guests. TLW operates everything that we do based on 5 pillars. Okay. I'm going to list them for you, and then all of them obviously will have impact, but let us know if there's one that stands out to you that you go, yeah, that would be the one if I had to put above all else that you live your life by. Okay.
This is not gonna be an easy choice, I can tell. This is y'all's 5 pillars.
This is TLW's 5 pillars. Okay. Honor God above all else. And so
pretty strong.
Okay. Let's take that one off the table.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, because that's a clear win.
It's why I listed it number 1, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's number 5.
Yeah. For a reason. It's number 5.
The second one.
So I got 4 options.
You got 4 options. Discipline is diligence. Value people over profit. Lead through service, not self. And build legacy through integrity.
Whew. Those are strong. My first thought is people over profit. But the service, tell me the service one again.
Lead through service, not self.
I mean, I think that's probably the thing that's, I don't know that I've ever really been about just profit. I think service is one of the strongest words. I think it's one of the, that's something I've strived to do, and struggled with a lot, in response. Once you finish law school, you're getting asked to be on all these boards and to do things, and you think, well, that's what we're supposed to do. That's not really service, is being on it. And I've had several periods of my life where I find myself needing to kind of, cut back on certain things to prioritize. And I have to ask myself and be brutally honest, why are you sitting on this board? What is it? Is it because you think it looks good? Or are you actually, is there another area of your life where you could serve better?
Right.
And so there's several, I think service to me, there's a lot of, just being there is not service, just showing up or doing something. And a lot of times I thought I wanted to maybe be on the L Club board because I thought it would be beneficial for me, as opposed to how can I help serve all of our 9,800 letter winners? That's awesome. What are we doing? So I think service is, I think it's a phrase that often, servant leadership, it often gets thrown around, but when you meet a servant who cares more about helping others and serving and not being in the limelight, you know it when you see it, and it's very impactful.
Yeah, you can tell, right off the bat. You can tell if somebody's there for themselves or they're truly for others, without question.
But those are great pillars. I don't know, how did y'all just pull those out of a hat?
Look at the intelligence in this room, man. Come on,
GPT.
Chat GPT.
You're reading through some 1776 manuscripts and found some.
Just some light bedtime reading.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, one of the things that we work with our clients on is the importance of habits, routines, etc. Our pastor who's actually one of our previous guests, Pastor Mike Heyman,
Yeah,
has a saying,
the great
the Bishop of Biceps. He's going to love to drop that
Bishop.
on here. He has a saying that I absolutely love, and we kind of as a group really identify with. It's big doors swing on small hinges. And so we want to know, are there any specific habits, routines, or anything that is a necessity to your day that helps you more or less align yourself with where you need to be to accomplish all that you accomplish day in and day out?
I feel like once you have kids, a lot of the routine, changes from what you kind of used to have, the structure. I would say that one of the most consistent things is when I first kind of crack my eyes in the morning, my first thing is to try to focus on what I'm thankful for about today, and through prayer too, and making that a much more intentional part of my life. But if I can just pause in the moment and just pick, okay, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm thankful for this opportunity to be in the moment here. I'm thankful that my kids are here, that everyone's healthy. That to me is something that I would say is probably the most important thing. When I wake up because I'm missing a phone call or I'm scrambling, then I'm in a total different spot with my whole day than just focusing. And I used to, so my grandmother who passed away at 100 years old, she was rounding third to 101. I used to call her, and her line, I would say, BB, what are you up to? Oh, just over here counting my blessings. And she could gripe about it. She never griped about anything, and she just would focus on, and this is a lady who lost, outlived 3 of her 4 kids and her husband, and lived to be 100 years old. But she was always counting her blessings, and that's, so I would say if there was kind of one routine in the morning, it's to try to to count my blessings in the morning.
Yeah, I love that.
So you're obviously very busy. Okay, we've gone through all of the things that you've accomplished, and you just discussed the need to stop, slow down, and acknowledge before your day gets going. Right. The concept of work-life balance, if just from a time standpoint, we live in reality here. We know it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Okay. And that for us starts when you start going to school, right? I mean, you're spending more time away from home than you are there. So as you have moved into the busy professional life, where again, because of how hard you work and because of who you are, you're going to always strive to succeed. How important is, I don't know, your approach to creating as much quality time as you can with your family? Because I know how much they mean to you, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you have 3 children, and obviously, you're married to an unbelievable woman. So talk to our viewers about that and the importance of it to you.
Yeah, it's the most important thing. Before I had kids, I used to work every Sunday. It helped Mondays. It just made Mondays go by easier. I haven't worked, unless I have a trial coming up, I haven't worked a Sunday in years. And and that's because when I'm at home, I want to be fully at home. There's oftentimes there's guilt about not getting back to an email or text message, but I try, and I'm terrible at it, because when I get home and I get off of work, I am trying to be there and be there completely. It's the most important thing. I work with Murphy Foster, who always talks in terms of, you got to take care of home and your family, and then take care of the work that you've got, the existing clients, and you got to develop new clients. And those three aspects are always, just depending on the time of year, and you've got to balance those, and they're not easy to balance. You can't do all of those, but I always think of, I need to be here, and I'm going to kids' events, and I'm rearranging schedules. It's the most important thing to me, and I think you have to be intentional. But there is a sense of guilt a lot of times, and when I get to work, I try not to deal with a lot of the personal stuff. I try to use the first 30 minutes to take care of the things that I need from a personal standpoint. I need to send this check to this place or whatever, so that I can then focus on what I need to focus on at work. The problem is then you get back to your phone after 2.5 hours of really focusing in, and you're playing catch up on a lot of things that some matter, some don't really matter. And that's a struggle that I have. But I always felt I grew up in a home where my voice mattered.
Yeah.
They cared when I was there. I never felt ignored. And both of my parents were attorneys, and they were receiving phone calls all the time. They served on boards. I was with them at a lot of board meetings. I was with them to go, build a fence for someone else that needed a fence built. So I bring my kids and involve them in a lot of that. But it's the most important thing, and it's not always aligned properly. Especially my wife is extremely active in the legal community. She's the president of the Baton Rouge Bar Association this year. She's by far the smartest, smartest of the two of us. Every law school class we took together, she just crushed it, and I did not crush it. But she balances. She just does such a beautiful job of not only getting the kids to where they need to be, but also reminding me very politely that remember we have this thing at school at 11:30, and that helps. But I mean, if you lose that, once you lose the home base, the wheels fall off of the whole thing. And so it's and again, I don't pretend to think that I always do a good job, and I'm glad my kids and wife aren't here getting asked these questions too. But it's by far the most important thing to me, and I recognize we have so much time. That is the biggest cliche you hear all the time. It goes fast. It absolutely it goes fast, and I'll see old pictures and I get emotional of my 10-year-old daughter who was just 2, and now she's almost as tall as my wife is. It goes by in a blink. But it's the biggest priority of my life. Yeah.
All right, so we're about to wrap things up in a second. Before Pix gets to our most favorite question that we ask.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I should have done a little bit more recon on this.
You'll figure it out pretty quick. Any basic pieces of advice for young professionals that are starting families? I mean, I know you kind of touched on that briefly, but do you have any like 1 or 2 quick bits that you can pass along to individuals who are stepping into seasons of life that you are in the middle of right now?
Yeah, one thing I have the incredible opportunity to teach at the LSU Law School, where I've taught sports law for the past 5 years. One of the things we talk about, and I love teaching. I love being there because these are students that are they're on the dock about to take off on their journey. But what I try to encourage them is to go do something spectacular. No route is going to be the same. Everyone thinks you got to get the grades here, you got to do this, and then you go to this type of firm, and you do this. Go build it. If there's not a path that you see that makes sense for you, then build it. And you have to have people along the way to support you, but you will. And a lot of people in the room with in the law school, they're going to be your biggest supporters. And the other thing is you've got to draw boundaries. And the work is going to be there. I tell myself that often because so many times I get caught up just trying to finish this little thing. If I can just finish this right now, and that may mean I'm 20 minutes late to something. The work's going to be there on Monday. Go help go to lunch with your friend that you hadn't seen in a long time. Shut the phone off at 5. And set those parameters with your clients. That's the most important thing. I regret a lot of times, emailing at 11:30 p.m. and you start to establish the expectations that if they send you something at 11:30.
That's gonna be the norm from there on.
It can be, and then you feel that if you don't, then you feel guilty. Well, I can't believe I let this thing sit and I haven't responded to them. Then you're adding this pressure instead of saying, "Look, I may respond to you at 5:30, but I'm off of the clock here." And there's exceptions to all of this. I mean, and trials are certainly those moments. But I would say, I would say just set boundaries, and the work is going to be there. It's a process. You're not ready when you come out of law school. But you're not, I always tell a lot of the young guys that I work with that are having babies, try to change every diaper you can. You're not going to have the
really
opportunity.
Appreciate that.
Well, it's all you can do in the moment. And I also work, I've got older, colleagues that never change one diaper, and it has a way of grounding you when you're there and you're jumping up. Yeah, I'll change the diaper. I mean, do I love changing diapers? No. Do I love taking something off of her hands in the, in that moment where and in my mindset is that if I can do that and help with that, you know, it, there's so much about the difference in generations and coming up, but to be as involved, take your kid to school. I pick my kids up from school every day.
Love it.
That means I'm leaving at 5 o'clock at the latest. I'm on two wheels coming in hot to pick them up, but that's a boundary, and I've set that, and that's what's going to happen. So I'm not at the office until 8. Now there's certainly nights where I need to pick it up once they go to bed. But just setting those boundaries is what I would say.
Yeah, love that.
Okay, so here goes.
Uh-oh.
And I'm gonna put a little twist
It's
on
my turn to ask y'all some questions.
No,
Is that another?
We're
is that-
almost
is that
done. You'll have to
episode
come back for that.
That's next time.
Is that episode 2?
So
Fastest mile you've ever run? I got a lot of questions over here.
So I'm going to put a little bit different twist on this question that we ask every client. Typically, I'll go back to an age like 17, 18, something like that, and say, here's the question I have for you. I'm going to take you back to 22. Okay, for obvious reasons, based on something that we covered earlier. And while we've already acknowledged the fact that in that moment, you don't want advice from somebody else. You don't want direction. You don't want that, okay? But you're 22-year-old David Fleshman in a dark period, and you got to overcome this. Maybe not overcome. You have to figure out how to move forward, okay? You, David Fleshman, right now, okay, gets to look at 22-year-old David Fleshman in that difficult moment, to say the least. And you get one piece of advice to give him.
Ooh.
What is
It's a really good question. I'd probably try to wrap my arms around him and tell him that you're gonna make it through. Slow down. You can't control a lot of this. And I would tell him, where I am now, I wish that I would have heard from somebody to really give it up to God, to stop trying to control everything, and to trust and lean into your faith. And again, at that time, I'm sure people said it. I'm not sure I would have responded well.
Right.
But in hindsight, over the last 18 years, the more that I tried to churn to control things or to be in control, because I'm scared of losing. You lose someone that close to you, it shakes everything everything is upside down, and including my faith at that time. But I would say, get involved, go to church, pray, take a moment. I just had this mentality of, I don't have time to do any of that. Like, that hadn't gotten me anywhere. And it's taken a long time for me to really figure out that instead of leaning into my faith, that I was really leaning out of the faith and relying on myself to carry the load, which is not how we're designed to do. And so I wish I could tell myself to, when you feel that scared and broken and damaged, to give that up to God and to lean into that, and instead of to try to fill it up by doing things where you are in control and you feel like you're good at, because it's really, you're just chasing your tail at that point.
Incredible. I'm gonna say this before we close, that to whoever watches this, if you didn't gain something from this, then you're unwilling to make the decisions that you need to make right now. And we've all been there, and we all get in that spot. But go back and watch this podcast whenever you are willing to make a change, and you'll see somebody who's sitting between us right now who didn't make any excuses during the darkest time of his life, has accomplished a whole heck of a lot, but has not made it about the accomplishments. he said that even today, the most important thing for him to do is to open his eyes and be thankful for what's around him. And so that would be the message that I know that's the message I'm going to take from this, even though I'm considerably older than everybody in this room. You have always been an example to those around you. You were one of the toughest guys I ever coached. Not irony, but the amazing part is 3 of the toughest guys I ever coached are in this room together right now. And I don't think that's by accident. And I think that
y'all do notice he said toughest. He didn't say the most talented. Y'all do notice.
I was going to ask. Wait, really quick before we close it out. I want to know how many torn ACLs we have in this room right now.
We got.
There's
a
2 over here and then one right there.
And I got. I got
and
3.
then you have 3.
I got 3.
Yeah, but you keep running on yours. That's a difference.
Yeah.
But he used to say that it was the best player, and then that every year I kept coming back and being like, well, this is getting. He can't say any of that. Now it's turned into just the toughest, which is it's a high compliment, and I would rather be one of the toughest.
I would rather that because that's character right there, brother.
It is funny though. I got asked the other day. Not the other day. I've had it over a few years, but who's your all-time Dunham starting 5?
Yeah, Sean Owens, meatball.
I can tell you right now, it's not Sean Owens.
And I'm telling you, David Fleshman finds his way into that lineup every time.
Yeah, for the first 30 seconds, and that horn better be coming in. You got a stable of other guys.
If I'm putting a team together.
Pix, I remember to watch you, especially how old were you when you started coaching us?
25, 26.
Which sounds like a baby.
Yeah.
But to us, you were man. You were man. You were married.
Yeah.
Like you were like that. You felt like you were 40. It just felt like
everybody.
But to watch you wear out the LSU guys that would come in there, and to watch you do it. And for us to be on your team, and that was, Bornay used to come in there. Used to have those the brothers, the Twin Tower brothers but they would wear out all of the college guys. And for me, I guess I was just thinking you were 40 years old or something, but and just tell them about it. But for us to be able to watch and to be a part of that, and to watch you just how you handled that, it's a lot of instant credibility. But then to be there with us for the tough losses and to be there with the positive message, your impact on so many people. I think how much you mean to me. But how long did you coach at Dunham?
21 years total.
And it's not just the basketball. You taught, and there's other people, but it gives me the chills right now thinking about it. Imagine the kids that come through the schools that have no one that even remotely cared about them or showed them what it looks like to be a man and a Christian man of faith. And also, I'm going to compete, and I'm going to be genuine, and there's no better example for us to have, and I can't thank you enough for that. And the generations that you change. A lot of the things that you've said to us in practice, and the toughness that I got to see. I don't think I was just always had that. I thought that's what we were all supposed to do. When everyone else is backing out of a fight, that's when you step up and you kind of draw the line. You give it your best effort. Those are things that those are generational things that I find myself saying to my kids. And it's just amazing when you sit back and think about the impact that you've had on obviously everyone in this room, but hundreds of people. And that's not even the AAU programs. That's not even what you're doing now. You're now pivoting into kind of having a more direct, but it's amazing. And I just get the chills to think about the impact that you're having on our generation and the next generation and the next generation in our community, which is a really awesome thing to be able to say that you're doing.
Man, that's incredible. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And you are now hired as our marketing director as well. But no, man, I'm telling you.
For the one person out there, you need to sign these guys up right now.
It's incredible.
Right. No, it's been so much fun doing that. Again, I thank you for the honor of coming on, and I appreciate. I feel like I've talked a lot about. Next episode, when y'all get a little break, I'm gonna flip the questions on you guys.
I'll see if I'm available.
Well.
If that barbecue ends early,
Our relationship obviously means a lot. It is obviously far from over as well, and we appreciate you coming on and giving us
Yep,
some time. And
absolutely.
really, like I said to the viewers, if they don't get something out of this, then they're just not in a place to get something out of it, because there were too many things said today that were impactful not to benefit from. So we'll wrap it here. For Jonathan Pixley, for Sean Owens, and for our partner behind the scenes, Jace Augustus. Again, David Fleshman, amazing job today. We will close at the TLW Podcast. Go get it.